made that move, okay.
Hey! I create life! I know, right?
It's an abomination.
The Juggernaut, bitch!
Welcome to another episode of Why Your BlockBuster Failed. This series of videos look at why blockbusters failed, whether it is critically, financially, or had a negative effect on future films. I plan to release this series once a month, and last episode I focused on Birds of Prey, which was a failure commercially. In this episode we look at a film that is talked about heavily to this day and is debated about throughout online message boards despite being released 4 years ago. Batman vs Superman is perhaps the greatest example of movie hype followed by crushing disappointment. When this film was announced way back in 2014, the fan anticipation was simply incredible. After the mixedly received Man of Steel, many fans felt Batman vs Superman was the film to improve on some of the poorer ideas in Man of Steel and would set up a comic book universe to rival Marvel, despite Marvel having effectively an 8-year head start on DC. Whilst the film was not a complete commercial failure, it was disappointing at the box office, having the record for the highest opening weekend gross worldwide and domestically to not eventually hit $1 billion at the global box office. The film, however, was a massive critical disappointment and made the entire DCEU course correct. This film has been torn apart by various people on YouTube. It really has got a kick in throughout the years. And with the release of the Snyder Cut movement gaining more and more momentum, this film is actually seeing renewed interest, and a lot of fans are now praising the film, which for me is quite weird considering the film is simply atrocious. And I'll break down in this video why the film failed critically and failed to make $1 billion, which it should have managed easily, especially when AQUAMAN managed it. I just want to say before I carry on, please do subscribe, it really helps out the channel, and I'm really enjoying making these videos at the moment, so please do subscribe if you are enjoying these videos, and always leave a comment on something you'd like to hear me talk about. Anyways, let's talk about why Batman vs Superman failed. Right, a huge part of why this film failed is the characterization of Batman. Whilst I actually enjoyed Ben Affleck's performance, and I think he could do a very good Batman with the right characterization, many fans were unhappy due to the number of people Batman kills in this film. Batman killing goes against everything the character stands for in my eyes, and any other audience's eyes to be honest. Snyder has brushed off this criticism over the years, even to go as far as criticizing fans claiming they live in a dream world.
Someone says to me like, oh, like Batman killed a guy. I'm like, fuck. Really? Like, I'm like, wake the fuck up. But you're living in a fucking dream world, okay?
In Batman vs Superman, Batman is assumed to have killed about 21 people, and if he didn't kill them, they were left with crippling injuries. That is an insane kill count for a character who doesn't kill. What is more bizarre to me, however, is the fact Batman's killing is never referenced. It actually could have worked in the context of the story. Batman becomes so obsessed with taking down Superman he loses sight of who he is and his morals in order to do what he believes is right. You simply need a scene where Alfred berates Bruce for his brutal way of working, perhaps even suggesting he was never like this before, and the fact he may have lost the Robin along the way. A lot of shit has gone down, but he needs to chill out. With that, you add an extra dynamic as Bruce regains a sense of who he is and some moral compass, remembering killing is not the way, and if he begins to kill, he is no better than the criminals he is bringing to justice. When Batman kills, you lose all sense of the character, and he is no better than the Joker, Two-Face, or any other villain. If Batman kills, then why would the police work with him? The idea of Batman is he believes in the justice system and aids the police in their work. Just because Batman perceives a character a bad guy, he shouldn't be killing them. What if he is wrong? For anyone who disagrees with me that Batman should kill and it is not that big a deal, here is what I ask. If Snyder's Batman kills, why does the Joker still live? I'll let you decide that. A major problem with Batman vs Superman Dawn of Justice is the fact it is trying to set up so many elements of the DCEU universe in an attempt to play catch up to Marvel's cinematic universe. In 2016, the MCU released a similar film to B vs S, Civil War, which saw the Avengers split into fractions and at odds with one another. It was also the 13th film released in the series and benefited hugely from the fact nearly every character apart from Spider-Man and Black Panther had already been introduced in multiple preceding films. Batman vs Superman, conversely, is the second film in the DC series and already has two characters at odds with each other, and one of our mains has yet to be even introduced. What I found even stranger though was when the title was released, not just Batman vs Superman, but Dawn of Justice as well. So the title was basically saying there are two parts to this film: the fight between the heroes, then them coming together to create the famous DC Comics team. But here is a quick rundown of everything this film tries to set up. 1. Batman introduction with origin story. 2. Lex Luthor introduction. 3. Wonder Woman introduction with hints to solo film. 4. The Flash's existence. 5. Aquaman's existence. 6. Cyborg's existence. 7. MOTHERBOXES. 8. Darkseid hint. And that's just to name a few. It's fine to have your films set up future films, Marvel have been doing it throughout their cinematic run, but when you have this many setups and introductions, it takes massively away from the plot and shifts focus too many times, making the story incoherent and messy. The plot takes too many breaks throughout the film to set up other aspects of the universe, instead of focusing on actually trying to be a good film. DCEU obviously wanted to rival the MCU, but didn't want to go through the time in setting up characters and doing boring origin stories, and simply wanted to skip ahead to the more interesting, bigger, world-building stories. However, creating a universe doesn't work like this. You have to lay the foundations, of which this film did not do at all. Patrick H. Williams does a very interesting video essay on the DCEU's character problem, and it actually goes over the many problems DC have faced trying to set up a cinematic universe. The single greatest thing which decides whether a film is a hit or a miss is word of mouth. The opening for Batman vs Superman was the 5th biggest opening worldwide ever. However, Batman vs Superman Dawn of Justice experienced a notable poor Friday to Sunday hold, and set a new record for the worst Friday to Sunday drop for a superhero film release in modern box office history, with a 58% decline, which was previously held by 2015's Fantastic Four. Batman vs Superman Dawn of Justice experienced a historic box office drop, with an 81.2% decline on Friday. That was one of the biggest Friday to Friday drops any blockbuster has ever seen, and an overall 68.4% drop for the weekend, despite not facing any big competition at the box office, making it the second largest decline for a marquee superhero film, behind only 2003's Hulk. Whilst it is usual for big blockbusters to experience a big drop in its second weekend, this was huge compared to other big blockbusters. If we look at other superhero films and the biggest second weekend drop, Batman vs Superman was the only real big blockbuster in the top 5. Word of mouth hugely affects box office performance. Despite our age of social media, a film is still hugely affected by how audience members receive it and tell their various friends and family. If you look at it this way, I'm a massive nerd who will see this film opening weekend, and so will all the other huge super fans, which is why the film did so well opening weekend. Now the real test is the second weekend, when these fans go out and tell their friends and family whether they should see this film. What do they say? Evidently our super fans went out and told people it wasn't that good or worth seeing. Now these general audience members who don't care much about Batman or Superman, who were on the fence about seeing it, probably are saying, well, it's not worth our time now. I mean, that guy who has a YouTube channel with a dog as the profile picture said don't go see it. And if there's anyone's opinion I trust, it's that guy's. I know now there is a massive release the Snyder Cut movement praising the Snyder films as incredible and smart, but it's hard to move away from the fact that back in 2016, fans didn't react that positively towards this film, and I think the Snyder movement are a vocal minority, and the people who dislike this film were a non-vocal majority. Snyder may say the film was disliked by a vocal minority, whilst that can't be true. If you look at the box office figures and the drop-off in money made each week, it shows, well, actually a large majority did not enjoy the film. These fans didn't spread the word positively and didn't return to watch it again. If you look at a film like Venom, which had terrible critic reviews but did fantastically at the box office, well, that was just due to good word of mouth. I mean, I personally don't like that film, but most people I speak to really enjoyed it, and they spread a positive message. Whilst I'm saying it's probably not worth seeing, a lot of people are saying go see it. So general audience members are listening to the majority and going to see the film. Okay, so this is a section I don't know if I will leave in this video because, well, this is more of a personal problem I have with the film, and this problem probably didn't attribute to the reason Batman vs Superman failed, but I think it did have a part to play in the poor critical reception. But I do not like the two cases of on-the-nose pandering to correct a major criticism of Man of Steel. So probably the biggest problem people had with Man of Steel was all the destruction that the Superman and Zod fight caused in Metropolis, with probably huge loss of life. Now, I didn't have a major problem with the amount of destruction there was if it was a little over the top, but Avengers did it just fine. My major problem was with this whole act, Superman shows no acknowledgement of human life. It just needed perhaps 2 instances of Zods being incapacitated for Superman to help some people get to safety. In Batman vs Superman, it corrects this problem, but in a strange way, by having 2 instances of characters saying there are no civilians about. On the news, when Doomsday is in Metropolis, the news reporter says this.
Ago. Thankfully, the workday is over and the downtown core, it's nearly empty.
And the second time, when Doomsday is on the island, we are told,
Projectile 1, impact, Stryker's Island, east of Metropolis.
That's uninhabited.
Just makes me fall massively out of the film, as I know the film is acknowledging big criticism of its predecessor. The whole thing feels forced, and the filmmakers are acknowledging a problem and correcting it, and talking down to their audience saying, see, it's all fine, we can do big destruction scenes and no one was hurt. But that wasn't the problem in the first place. Just make the film you want to. If you want to make changes based on fans' reception of the previous, make them, but don't make it so blatant as if the audience are idiots. Do it in a creative way. And anyways, it wasn't my problem that these places were inhabited. My problem was people were dying and our heroes were showing no care for the people that were dying around them. Probably the 2 worst characters in the whole film. Superman is just a motionless character who has no significant actions to the actual plot of the film, despite he himself being the focal point of the plot. Superman's only real action is killing Doomsday, but that's the end of the film. Henry Cavill has 45 lines in this film. What can he do that is noteworthy with 45 lines? But this isn't his fault, it's just a terrible script. My major problem with Superman in these films, and I have already done a video on this, is we still don't understand his motivations. It's said we understand a character due to the actions he takes, but we don't understand any of the actions Superman is taking because his motivations have never been set up. He started the film series as a hero. With the first scene we ever see him in Man of Steel, he is saving people on an oil rig. So where's the growth? And in this film, he is just a stagnant character, instead of growing and learning things. The key aspect is to show what motivates Superman, and we are still not showing this in this film, so audiences cannot connect with this character. Audiences mostly dislike the character because they just don't understand what makes him tick, and that is a huge mistake made by Warner Brothers to not flesh out Superman. Now, Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor is one of the worst characters in comic movie history, and easily the worst interpretation of Lex Luthor. A completely misguided performance, Eisenberg's Luthor encompasses nothing about the character of Luthor. Luthor's plan is overly complex and basically makes no sense, and requires a lot of assumption events will go a certain way. Basically, the plan is mostly down to luck. The best thing about Luthor is his genius, and how he's able to find the weakness of people, and use them against you and manipulate his target. What does he do in this film? It has a god complex problem, so decides to get rid of Superman. Instead of finding one of his weaknesses of character, Lex decides to manipulate Batman to kill him. Well, I mean, what chance did he think Batman had? Forget about the fact Batman won the fight. I mean, that is a huge assumption that you thought the best way to dispose of someone who has been compared to a literal god to a bloke in a batsuit. His plan B was just to create a being as powerful as Superman in Doomsday. I mean, it doesn't reek of the genius of Luthor. It's just a very by the books plan to get a big guy to punch him. That's not the Luthor I love. Forget the fact that the performance is incredibly jarring, mixed between Mark Zuckerberg and Adam Landis. The whole characterization is wrong. Luthor isn't just some insane guy who acts a bit like the Joker or the Riddler. He's a genius master strategist. He's always one step ahead of you. Instead, in Batman vs Superman, he seems like he's always fighting to regain control of the situation. But let's talk about the worst aspect of Lex Luthor. So here is Lex's plan. Well, first of all, here's his aim. So he wants to orchestrate a plan for Batman and Superman to fight each other, probably because he knows the film's called Batman vs Superman, and he wants Superman dead. But that doesn't really solve his problem, because now he's got a man who can kill Superman. So what does he actually want? That's one of the major problems with Lex. We don't understand what he wants. What is he trying to achieve? And this is never actually explained in the film. So people don't understand why we should be worried about this villain, because we don't know what his end goal is. So anyways, how does he achieve his plan of making this film called Batman vs Superman? So, here is the plan. 1. Learn the secret identities of Batman and Superman. How does he manage this? Who cares? Number 2. Now get Lois Lane to interview an African militia leader before outing Jimmy Olsen as a CIA operative, meaning Superman will show up and he can frame Superman for the death of the entire militia. Despite everyone being riddled with bullets, the government looks into this and why Superman killed all this militia. Now remember, the ultimate cut doesn't count. Number 3. Now Hope, one of the surviving African villagers, lied to Congress about Superman's actions, meaning he now has to testify. Number 4. Next step, force feed candy to a congressman who will give him access to kryptonite in General Zod's body, so he can steal his fingerprints. Number 5. Send some crazy letters to Bruce Wayne, who hopefully instead of investigating these strange letters, will just get mad and decide Superman must pay. Number 6. Invite both Bruce Wayne and Clark Kent to an event to introduce them to one another so they become hostile, even though, why would these two men need to meet? Isn't this a little bit suspicious? 7. Blow up the Capitol building, so everyone blames Superman. And fingers crossed this pushes Batman over the edge. Thankfully, it does. Number 8, well, Lex needed a backup plan, so he begins to create Doomsday. Number 9, kidnap Martha and Lois Lane in order to manipulate Superman to fight Batman. Now fingers and toes crossed this time that Batman doesn't explain the situation to Batman, which luckily for Lex he doesn't. How overly complex is that plan? Very. I hate every aspect of Lex and his plan in this film. There is no strategy or intelligence. Everything with Lex's plan is just pure luck. There are so many things that could go wrong, but because the film is called Batman vs Superman, of course everything works. There are just a multitude of things that could just go wrong. Lex is supposed to be the smartest human in the world who has every eventuality planned out, but instead the entire time his plan just seemed like dumb luck. I do have future videos going into more detail as to my problem with Lex though. But his plan is just so god awful. It doesn't scream the intelligence or strategist Lex is. Lex's plan in the comics at least usually focus on an aspect of Superman's character. The best Lex schemes focus on Superman's morality and Superman's need to do good and save everyone. Lex realises that if Superman's unable to save people, Superman feels like he is not enough. But instead, Lex's plans just really revolve around punching and manipulating people. Well, what about when these people realise they are being manipulated? Oh, you built a huge monster. Oh, well now what? How are you going to contain that? What is Lex's strategy if he gets caught in the end? Usually Luthor would have something worked out that nothing could be traced back, but this Lex was easily caught. His plan should be airtight, that even though you know he did it, it should be impossible to link it back to him. Instead, his plan just comes off very rushed, not particularly intelligent, and basically planned by a madman. And the end of the film says Lex is insane. Well, Lex isn't actually insane, he's a genius. And he never showed psychotic episodes, but this interpretation of the character shows him as being very mentally unstable. And it's put off in such a weird way that the character is not threatening in any way. And we are wondering why we should actually be scared about it. I really hate Lex's plan because it made the plot messy and the screenplay just was awful. And it really took me out of the film because I just could not follow what was going on. So there you have it, why this blockbuster failed. I mostly went into the critical side because I have a lot of problems with this film critically, and I think this is why it failed, because it just got such a big kicking from critics, fans and audience members. I know this video is probably going to get a lot of hate as the release of the Snyder Cut movement gains more and more momentum, and it seems criticising this film is a big no-no, but I just thought I would speak on the film's failings critically and financially, and basically why these failings came about and my personal problems with the film. But anyways, thank you for watching.